Scott Wright, DraftCountdown.com, the president of DraftCountdown.com, joined us now with a look at the NFL Draft from all angles as it is almost here. And I would anticipate, Scott, that this has got to be one of the more highly anticipated drafts just because of the sports landscape right now. Sometimes the draft kind of, I don't want to say gets lost in the sauce, but you got NBA playoff games and everything going. This is the only game in town. Are you feeling more anticipation than in past years?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Usually there's NBA getting ready for the playoffs. You got the baseball season's usually underway, so all the focus right now is on the NFL and the NFL draft this weekend. So it's going to be fun, and I think there's going to be some surprises, not only in the early rounds, but all throughout the draft, because, usually the last month and a half leading up to the draft, these scouts and decision makers, they're on the road at these pro days gathering information, and, like myself, people who love the draft and love scouting, they like to talk about these players and these situations and scenarios, and they're a chatty, gossipy bunch, and usually word starts to leak. Oh, this team's looking for this player, this team's looking for help at this position. We don't really have that this year, so I think there's going to be more surprises, not only necessarily in the first round. I think there'll be some, but really later in the draft, I think we're going to see some guys that we expect to go in the 6th, 7th round go in maybe the 4th round and vice versa.
Let me start with 21 in the Eagles. A couple things here. I'm starting to see a couple of mock drafts. I know your most recent mock is not updated yet, holding out to the last possible minute, but I've seen Henry Ruggs slipping to that 21 spot in more and more mock drafts. What do you think about Ruggs at 21 at this time?
I mean, that would be the dream scenario for the Eagles. I mean, he is exactly what that offense needs, and an injection of not only youth, but speed and explosiveness. So that would be the dream scenario. I guess I think it's pretty unlikely, even if somehow he gets past that top 15, because, just outside the top 10, you have the Jets at 11, the Raiders at 12, the Niners at 13, the Broncos at 15. All could take wide receivers. So we could have 3 of them come off the board, bing, bang, boom. But then even if Ruggs does get by all those guys, I don't know if the Raiders can pass on him at 19, and somebody might trade up. In fact, I've heard the Eagles mentioned as a possibility of trading up, whether it be for Ruggs or I've heard them linked to CeeDee Lamb from Oklahoma. So if they want to get one of those top 3 guys, I think they're going to have to maneuver a little bit and get aggressive. And if they stay at number 21, of course, everyone talks about Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver from LSU, would make a lot of sense. Denzel Mims from Baylor has a lot of momentum right now. I think that would be a little early for him, but I definitely think the Eagles are looking wide receiver. There's been some speculation about a linebacker, and on paper, do they need a linebacker? Absolutely. I think it's every bit as big of a need as wide receiver, but it's just not a position the Eagles organization has prioritized early in the draft. So I'll be mildly surprised if they take Kenneth Murray from Oklahoma or Patrick Queen from LSU, even though it would be a fit for both value and need. All signs are pointing to the Eagles zeroing in on wide receiver, and I think it's the right move to make. And now they just have to decide, are they happy with the options that are going to be there at 21, or do we need to go get someone? And Philly has shown on draft day they'll trade up if there's a guy that they're targeting, whether it's Carson Wentz. Just last year, they traded up a little bit for Andre Dillard, so I think that's something they have to consider.
Yeah, more on that in just a minute with Scott Wright. I want to get your take. You mentioned Ruggs. The other guy seems to be Justin Jefferson, and one of the reasons Ruggs keeps going to 21 places is because people have Jefferson going ahead of 21. What are you hearing about Jefferson, or do you think he is more likely to be there at 21?
I think there's a really good chance Jefferson's there at 21, and a different type of player. And I think that's what's hurting Jefferson a little bit in this first round of this conversation. He profiles, even though he's got good size, he's over 6'1", he's 200 pounds, profiles more of a slot receiver. And you think of slot receivers, you think of Wes Welker or one of these little, quick, shifty guys. But Justin Jefferson, that's going to be his best fit at the next level. He's not going to be an outside receiver who's necessarily running these vertical routes and making plays downfield, which I kind of think is what Philly needs. I mean, in a lot of ways, Jefferson's going to be a bigger, far more reliable version of Nelson Aguilar, who the Eagles just lost in free agency. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, at this point for the Eagles, any playmaker will help, but is he the best fit? I don't think so. Like I said, I just think Ruggs is. I think of all the players in the draft, if the Eagles were picking 10, and I think Ruggs would be the best fit.
Really? So you don't condone or advocate Howie Roseman trading up for maybe CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy?
I mean, I wouldn't fault them for it. I mean, like I say, anything they do is going to be an upgrade. But I just think of what the Eagles have. They have these big receivers like, Alshon Jeffrey, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Deshaun Jackson's very much a question mark. They need that guy who's going to keep defenses honest, who's going to be a threat to score every time he touches the ball from anywhere on the field. That's going to be Henry Ruggs. And the thing that I like about Henry Ruggs is because, I mean, in the past, too, I've been reluctant with some of these really fast guys because more often than not, they're finesse, they're track guys playing football. It's not the case with Henry Ruggs. He is strong. He is tough. He'll do the little things. He plays special teams. So, he breaks the mold and kind of defies conventions for the type of player he is.
That's interesting stuff because as you just mentioned briefly there, CeeDee Lamb, is he the guy that if the Eagles would trade up for, is he the guy they go for? Jerry Jeudy, is he the better fit? If they make a move up, it would probably be for one of those two guys, no?
It sounds like it would be CeeDee Lamb. It's a really close grade between those three guys. It's not quite a 1A, B, 1A, 1A, 1B, 1C situation, but it's pretty close. In fact, in my final overall rankings, which I just put up on the site, I couldn't even separate them. I think I have them like 11, 12, 13 or something, right back and forth. It kind of just comes down to what you're looking for. But ultimately, I think CeeDee Lamb probably has the highest grade. I think he's a favorite to be the first one off the board. Maybe as early as the Arizona Cardinals at number 8. I know the Raiders really like him at number 12. So I think CeeDee Lamb's the first one to be off the board. And he was a big play threat in college. He averaged like 20 yards a catch. He made a lot of big plays, but doesn't have blazing speed. He ran a 4.50, which is more than adequate. But for the type of player he is, he's more the guy who's going to take that 10-yard pass and make people miss and create and make a big play that way. Whereas Henry Ruggs is the guy that's just going to run by you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, Ruggs, very interesting, explosive, 5'11", though, more in the mold of a Deshaun Jackson, I guess, with that size. CeeDee Lamb, a little bit bigger of the group. Jerry Jeudy, 6'1", Lamb, 6'1", Jefferson, 6'1", and then you have the next group of guys. So let's say 21 comes, and all 4 of those guys are gone, right? Then what does Howie Roseman do? Is there a defensive player that sticks out for 21, or is that a trade out of that spot move for Howie Roseman?
I think it would probably be time to start thinking about bailing. I think there will be an option at wide receiver there, but if the top 4 are gone, I think they could probably move down a little bit. An exception might be Denzel Mims from Philly. I mean, there are scenarios where Denzel Mims goes as early as 15 to the Broncos. I've heard him linked to the Raiders, who have those 2 mid-first round picks. And then, of course, once you get outside the top 20, there's plenty of teams that are looking for a pass catcher, whether it be the Eagles, the Vikings, the Saints, the Packers. So we could have a little bit of a run on wide receivers late in the first round, not only with the top 3 we mentioned. Justin Jefferson, I think, is in there, but then you have some guys on the fringe. Mims is kind of on that first-round fringe. Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State. If not for an injury that's kind of hampered him throughout this pre-draft process, I think he'd be safely in that first round as well. But the other factor I think teams are going to have to look at is this landscape. There's a lot of talk about this wide receiver class, how great it is, and it's incredible, but not necessarily the best wide receiver class I've ever seen because of the top, but it's definitely the deepest wide receiver class I've ever seen. I think that's what the strength is, the depth more than the top-end talent. And I wonder if teams that need receiver that I talked about late in the first round, they say, well, we like this player, but there's such incredible depth. We're going to be able to get similar value 2 rounds later, not only 1 round later, maybe 2 rounds later. And maybe they address another position in the first round and take advantage of that depth. So that's the kind of storyline I'm looking forward to watching going into the draft is there a second run on wide receivers late in the first round, or do teams kind of keep their powder dry and take advantage of that incredible depth? And not only second, third round, fourth round, fifth round, I mean, even undrafted free agency, there's probably going to be 2 dozen wide receivers who go undrafted this year that would be selected almost every other year.
All right, so what about 53? Who are some names that are in play at wide receiver at 53?
Yeah, and that's the great thing about this wide receiver class is no matter what round, no matter what type of player you're looking for, there's going to be options. If you want a speed guy, if you want a possession guy, or you want a return skill, whatever you want, there's going to be something available. I mean, the guy who really stands out for me at 53 at the Eagles' way down wide receiver is KJ Hamler from Penn State. Some similarities to Marquise Brown, who went in the first round last year. Not real big, 5'8.5", 100, just under 180 pounds, but really fast, really explosive. And you think of him as I mean, Deshaun Jackson's too big of a name to compare him to, but even Mecole Hardman from last year. So I think that would be an intriguing name. And then Jalen Reagor from TCU, too, is kind of has a wide range. There's some chatter that maybe he's one of those guys that goes late in the first round, but I wouldn't be shocked if he was still there at 53. And he's been overly productive, a little bit of an underachiever this past year, but a lot of that was due to the quarterback's inability to get him the ball, but an explosive athlete. He's built like a running back. He runs a 4.4. His dad played in the league, so he's got those NFL bloodlines. So I think those I'd be looking at for the Eagles in round 2.
All right. Let's go a little deeper than that because you mentioned the depth. If you're in the third round and you're looking at wide receiver, are there still intriguing names for you to say? I know for Thursday night, Eagle fans are going to be looking at, they didn't get a receiver. If on Friday in that second round they still don't have a receiver, are they still in a shape to be able to get someone that can help them?
And you know what? I wouldn't fault the Eagles for using 2 of their early picks on wide receivers. I think the situation is, I don't know if dire is the right word, but it's that imperative that they address it. Some names in the third round, Lynn Bowden Jr. from Kentucky, a guy who has drawn comparisons to Randall Cobb because he played at that same program, a big-time athlete, actually played quarterback. He was kind of a wildcat quarterback most of this past season as a virtue of what the team needed him to do, but he's an interesting guy. He's going to come off the board in day 2. I really like Devin Duvernay from Texas. Had over 100 catches this past season, sub 4.4 speed. He's going to be there in the third, maybe even fourth round. John Hightower from Boise State, a little bit of a Will Fuller vibe to him, a little slight frame, but he's got good height and he's really fast and a terrific vertical threat. And one sleeper to keep an eye on, a wide receiver that people don't really talk about, who I think is going to go earlier than expected, is Isaiah Colter from Rhode Island. Came out as an underclassman. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. He runs a 4.45. One of the top small school prospects in this draft. And there's some chatter that he could even sneak into the back end of the third round, otherwise in the fourth round. So that's just the third round. And I could do the same thing for the fourth round, the fifth round, the sixth round. I mean, I just can't say enough about the depth at wide receiver in this class.
And I know you could do that after talking to you over the years. I know you could just start giving us a bunch of names. If you want to see Scott's full rankings of the wide receivers, he has the top, 120. Actually, I think it goes to a second page here. 128 of the top wide receivers ranked at draftcountdown.com. All right, let me go to then linebacker, because linebacker is definitively a position of need for Philadelphia. We would probably all agree on that. Would you say drafting a linebacker at 21 in today's game is too early?
I think it depends on the team. I think if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, probably. I think if you're a team who really emphasizes that position, you can make a really strong argument for Kenneth Murray, who I love, and Patrick Queen, but it's just not really the Eagles' MO. And to their credit, they've been very effective finding options at that position later in the draft in those mid and late rounds. And I think that's probably the tack they'll take again this year. But linebacker is another position where I kind of like the depth. I think you're going to be able to get a good player in those middle rounds, the third, fourth, fifth round. So, you know, and like I say, when I bring stuff like that up, the Eagles don't take linebackers. There's a first time for everything. Rules are made to be broken, but just if you're playing the odds and betting on history, it's a position they don't take early. But you know, later on, Willie Jr. from Mississippi State's an intriguing guy who tested off the charts at the combine. Kind of one of those boomer bust prospects where more about potential than production. A player I really, really like that I think is going to be a steal. Might go in the third, but probably going to be there in the fourth. Akeem Davis-Gaither from Appalachian State. Not as big as Isaiah Simmons from Clemson, who's going to go in the top 10 overall. He doesn't have quite that same length. He's 6'1.5", 225 pounds, but very fast, very athletic. He's kind of that safety linebacker hybrid. And
which is what the Eagles like, right? I mean, the Eagles seem to,
right.
You know, Nate Geary's their best linebacker right now. He was a college safety.
And that's what's in vogue in the NFL these days. That's the type of player you need. And he's the type of guy, I watched him down at the Senior Bowl. He came down the box and played linebacker, but he could also run down the field vertically step for step with some pretty good wide receivers. So I'm a big fan of him. Same goes for Damien Taylor from Colorado, another guy who's undersized but extremely athletic. Didn't start playing football until really late in his high school career, like the last half of the season of his senior year. So his best football is still ahead of him. And then one more player I'll mention, too, who really moved up at the combine, Tanner Muse from Clemson, another one of these safety linebacker tweeners. He's got experience at both positions. He's 6'2", only 227 pounds, but he ran a 4.41 for So he's maybe moved up into that middle round range where he comes off the board in the 4th or 5th round. So those are some names, I think, the 3rd, 4th, 5th round that if you're looking for a linebacker, I think those are the types of guys Philly will be looking for. And that's another position where, just like wide receiver, I would make an argument for taking a couple.
All right. We know the top of the draft is going to be very interesting with all the quarterback possibilities, Burrow, Tua, and obviously Justin Herbert. So when do you think the first wideout is taken?
That's going to be interesting. I think the best-case scenarios would be the Cardinals at 8, and I've heard a lot of wide receivers talk to the Jaguars at 9. I'm not sure I completely buy that, but I think that would be the best-case scenario. But the run's going to start maybe the Jets at 11. I think that's a coin flip between an offensive tackle and a wide receiver. But then certainly we know the Raiders are looking for a wide receiver either at 12 or 19. The Niners at 13, they're definitely looking for a wideout. The Broncos are definitely looking for a wideout. And I think that's one of those places, too, where we might see some trading and jockeying for position. We mentioned the Eagles maybe trading up because everybody kind of knows, hey, just outside the top 10, there's going to be this run. So if you want one of these top 3 receivers, you know where you have to go to get one of them. And I think the same kind of goes for offensive tackle, where we could see the top 4 offensive tackles come off the board between picks 4 and 11. So that's another position where if you want one of those guys, you know where you have to go. So even more so than the top of the draft, maybe in the top 5 we see a team trade up to get a quarterback, but I almost think that more action is going to take place at the back end of the top 10 more so than the top 5.
All right, all that and plenty more for the draft on Thursday. DraftCountdown.com for all the rankings to see where these players are sitting in Scott's latest updated rankings. He'll have the mock draft up for the draft 2 days, 4 hours, 6 minutes, 30 seconds until we are on the air and live with the NFL Draft 2020. Scott Wright, DraftCountdown.com, here to break it down. Always a pleasure, Scott. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Anytime.